National 9 News. This is Nightline with Helen Kapelos.
Ecstasy for the fans as Michael Jackson walks free. Secret diaries reveal the tortured life of the woman in the boot. And the government's glee as tax cuts finally get the go-ahead. Good evening. Prosecutors hung their heads, but fans screamed with glee as Michael Jackson was today found not guilty over a string of child molestation charges. But while Jackson walked free, he now faces new hurdles. His image has been tainted, and with failing health and financial problems, it could be an uphill battle to resurrect his career.
There was no victory dance, not even a smile, just a simple wave to the thousands of supporters waiting outside the court. This is Michael Jackson, relieved and free.
Justice was done. The man's innocent, he always was.
After suffering the humiliation of being branded a child sex fiend, his departure was low-key and dignified. The jury had deliberated almost 33 hours, agreeing that for all his weird behaviour, Michael Jackson is not a pedophile. Cameras were forced to remain outside the hearing room as the 10 verdicts sealed in envelopes were handed to trial judge Rodney Melville. It took 4 minutes to have them read in court: not guilty of molestation, not guilty of attempted molestation, not guilty of supplying alcohol to a minor.
We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of conspiracy.
Jackson would have heard the roar from fans outside, one releasing a dove for every not guilty verdict. There was jubilation. A scene repeated from the gates of his Neverland ranch to New York, where there was dancing on the streets, fans glued to giant TVs.
I knew he would get off. Michael is innocent, and they need to leave him alone.
I'm not going to look back and apologize for anything we've done. We did a very conscientious, thorough job.
But not thorough enough to convince the jury that Michael Jackson plied Gavin Vizo with alcohol, then molested him.
The most loving thing to do is to share your bed with someone.
The boy's mother was a disaster for prosecutors, a welfare cheat seen by many as paranoid and delusional, whose only thoughts were of Jackson's money.
I think that jurors were openly questioning her sanity. I think that she really was a difficult witness, the most bizarre witness I've ever seen on the stand.
Instead, jurors believe the likes of actor and friend Macaulay Culkin, who shared Jackson's bed, but insists it was always innocent. Those same jurors are now signing book deals about their 4 months on the world's most watched trial.
I think we all just looked at the evidence and pretty much agreed.
Fortunately, we did get to know each other in being tight quarters, that we were able to have discussions and not screaming matches. And we had a lot of good food.
The verdict was perfect for late-night TV.
You know something, if he had been a black guy, he would have got convicted like that. You know,
The question now is, will record executives and fans give the one-time child star turned king of pop a second chance?
This could be the beginning, the resurrection of Michael Jackson's musical career.
But even as he returned to Neverland today, Jackson himself would have known that his already bizarre life will never be the same again. Christine Spiteri reporting for Nightline.
The inner thoughts of Melbourne's woman in the boot, Maria Korp, have been revealed for the first time, laying bare her torment in the lead-up to the attempt on her life. The court has released her diaries as part of the evidence against Tanya Herman, whose bizarre sex life with Maria's husband Joe Korp is also detailed.
These pages contain some of the last thoughts written down by Maria Korp. They reveal a woman struggling after the discovery of her husband's affair with a woman who has admitted trying to kill her, Tanya Herman. In a diary written in a mixture of English and Portuguese, Maria says she told Joe, "This Tanya is destroying our family. She's using the devil to follow." She also wrote, "He has 2 women and doesn't know what he wants, but I know what he wants, her over me." A statement from a clairvoyant says Maria had a dream late last year that her husband might organise something untoward against her. Maria also said Joe had given her a sexually transmitted disease and wanted her to join a swingers club, the thought of which repulsed her. The clairvoyant told Maria to change the locks on her house immediately, which she did. The police brief also contains new allegations about Joe Korp's extramarital life, including a statement from another woman who says she'd met him via a swingers website after he'd already met Tanya Herman. And Ms Herman detailed her sex life to police. Asked if she'd ever had sex with Joe and other people at the same time, she said yes, with couples, not just with men. Tanya Herman also said Maria used to threaten Joe. He's told me many occasions that she would stab him or kill him in his sleep. Maria told friends Joe once tried to take his own life. And another diary bearing Joe Korp's name and dated February this year when Maria was still missing says, "I've had enough of living and want to see what's on the other side." Writing to the children, he says, "If Mummy's not around, I never hurt or killed her." Perhaps the most poignant words are at the end of one letter written to Joe. "Always remember, I will love you until I die. Maria." Brett McLeod for Nightline.
The fugitive Queensland surgeon dubbed Dr. Death has been warned he won't receive any special treatment if he agrees to return to Australia of his own accord. His lawyers have argued for indemnity from prosecution if he volunteers himself to the authorities, but Premier Beattie says that's simply not an option.
An angry Premier and the Attorney-General were steaming this morning over a published report the government was negotiating with Dr. Jayant Patel's lawyers.
There was obviously an attempt to try and pressure us into agreeing to an indemnity, and we will not.
Peter Beattie told key ministers and the Deputy Police Commissioner Crown law officers would handle negotiations with Patel's lawyers to persuade him to return. This afternoon, Brisbane lawyers Quinn and Scatini confirmed they were now representing the doctor.
And we have some indication that he may be keen to return to tell his side of the story.
We are prepared to pay an economy airfare one way. We're prepared to talk about safe accommodation.
But the indemnity issue has probably reduced Patel's prospects of returning.
Yes, they have diminished, and it is on a knife edge. It is at breaking point.
In fact, Dr. Death could do another runner.
He may seek to go to a country where there's no extradition.
Mr. Beattie is now on his way to the United States on a business mission, intending to spread the word about the fugitive surgeon.
We're not in a great position, but it's the only tactics we've got.
The opposition maintains the government fluffed it when Dr. Patel was given a taxpayer-funded flight out of the country. Lawrence Springborg wants a cash reward posted now to learn just where he is.
A few $100,000 for a worldwide reward calling for information on Dr. Patel.
Meanwhile, the government has set aside more than $200,000 for victims of Patel to have legal representation when the Morris Royal Commission resumes in Bundaberg next week. Spencer Jolly for Nightline.
10 million taxpayers will get a little more in their pay packet from next month after the Greens and the Democrats agreed to support the government's tax cuts. While Labor is still opposed, they'll easily pass through the Senate thanks to the minor parties.
Treasurer Peter Costello took a reluctant nod from the Greens and Democrats on tax as his cue to launch into Labor.
The Australian Labor Party make the Australian Greens look decisive and economically responsible.
In fact, like Labor, the Greens and Democrats say the government's $6 a week cut for low and middle income earners is too low. But the minor parties have decided not to delay the cuts until the government takes control of the Senate.
We agreed this morning that it was not reasonable to cause extra costs to particularly the business sector.
The Democrats have also decided to support Senate amendments, probably Labor's, which will force the government to vote down bigger tax cuts for low and middle income earners. Of more concern for the government is the failure of last night's talks between 4 rebel Liberal backbenchers and the Prime Minister to resolve differences on mandatory detention.
There have been some matters discussed, particularly in relation to families with children, which we welcome.
But no agreement. So the group is pressing ahead with 2 private members' bills now listed for Parliament next Monday.
We must end this policy of keeping people in detention for indefinite periods of time.
I'm willing to make any adjustment that will make the policy work better, that doesn't undermine the fundamentals of the policy.
The government could stall the vote if it chooses, but that would only serve to highlight its embarrassment over the rift. Then again, if it allows the vote, it could face the greater embarrassment of up to 8 Liberal MPs crossing the floor to vote against a key government policy.
Will the Prime Minister give an undertaking to the House that these bills will be given precedence and that in the next 2 weeks these bills will be debated and voted on?
Yeah. The Honourable Prime Minister.
No. Tim Lester reporting for Nightline.
Major changes to child support could be on the way after a ministerial task force recommended the incomes of both parents be taken into account equally. Under the proposed changes, divorced and separated fathers could pay less than they do currently.
Those of you who have teenagers will know they cost very much more than young children, and our formula reflects that.
The report also recommends the amount of time each parent spends with their children is taken into account. Kylie Minogue has finally had her say about the hullabaloo surrounding her treatment for breast cancer. In a statement published on her website, Kylie says reports an entire wing was cleared at Melbourne's Cabrini Hospital to make way for her were ridiculous.
Still recovering at her parents' home in Canterbury after successful surgery for breast cancer, Kylie Minogue has responded to the bevy of rumours surrounding her condition. In a statement published on her website, Kylie urges her legion of fans not to believe everything they've read, saying rumours surrounding her condition and ongoing treatment are rife and generally incorrect. It follows claims up to 8 elderly patients awaiting heart surgery were moved from their beds at Cabrini Hospital to make way for the pop diva. She says, unfortunately, it still seems the truth doesn't get in the way of a story. The repainting of my hospital room pink, imported English bodyguards, more imagined boyfriends, diverted ambulances and an entire hospital wing for my entourage and other equally ridiculous stories. While Kylie Minogue was operated on here at Cabrini Hospital, the pop princess won't receive any further treatment in Melbourne. She says that will continue once she returns to Europe. In the meantime, she says she's being well looked after, but warns her breast cancer battle isn't over just yet, admitting it will be a long road ahead. Clint Stanaway reporting for Nightline.
The case to have smoke alarms fitted in all homes across the country gained momentum tonight with the death of a man in yet another fatal house fire in Melbourne. New South Wales has introduced new laws to make them compulsory by May next year, with pressure mounting on the other states to follow suit.
Another overnight house fire, another reason why smoke alarms are to become compulsory. No one was injured this time. But by the time fire commissioners met with the government, the decision had already been made to force those unwilling to take added precautions.
13 fire deaths in 2 weeks, of course, is way too many. Just one death is too many.
From May next year, smoke alarms will be mandatory in all homes, including rental properties, boarding houses, backpacker hostels and hotels.
Remember, it's usually smoke that kills people, not fire. That's why smoke alarms are essential in your home.
New ads will back up the campaign. Councils will have the power to check homes for compliance. Yet to be determined penalties will be a last resort.
We want to achieve this position of 100% coverage by cooperation. We really think we're going to get there.
And while insurers support the changes, they've told the government they can't deny insurance to homeowners who refuse to comply. Department stores are reporting a surge in sales over the past fortnight, but fitting an alarm is just the first step.
The battery operated one, the fire chiefs will tell you that they're as effective. The problem comes about if people don't replace the battery.
Authorities say smoke alarms might have prevented last week's fatal house fire at Wyong. Nigel Blunden reporting for Nightline.
South Australian Premier Mike Rann has given evidence in the state's first political corruption trial. The Premier's former senior advisor Randall Ashbourne is in trial in the District Court on a charge of abusing the public office. Premier Rann told the court he's known Mr Ashbourne for 20 years and always found him to be an honest person. And in Perth, the National Party is in turmoil following the resignation of leader Max Trenorden. Mr Trenorden quit the party in response to the so-called one vote, one value electoral reform legislation. By all accounts, retiring Commonwealth Bank Chief David Murray has been credited with turning the bank around. And for that, he's walked away with one of the biggest golden handshakes in Australian corporate history, a staggering $37 million.
Starting out as a teller at the Linfield branch in 1966,
David Murray worked his way up to run the largest bank in the country.
It was quite urgent that the bank had to upgrade the way it was managed.
Since Murray became CEO 13 years ago, the Commonwealth's profits have soared from $400 million to $3.5 billion a year, and the share price has jumped sevenfold to $38.30.
The shareholders have done very well during David's tenure.
Air New Zealand boss Ralph Norris takes over. He's credited with rescuing the airline after the Ansett merger and the September 11 attacks. So what's he got?
It was the people skills, the team building skills, the customer service orientation.
Norris ran the Commonwealth's New Zealand operation. His successful cost-cutting campaign was brought to Australia.
I think the opportunity for Commonwealth Bank now is to take the Which New Bank platform and to go for a more aggressive growth strategy.
As is always the case, the jobs get ripped out before the new processes and technology are actually delivering.
After almost 40 years with the bank, David Murray is expected to be paid out around $37 million, $15 million of that coming in superannuation alone. And his successor won't be underpaid. If he performs to the bank's expectations, a paycheck of around $7.6 million a year awaits. Ross Greenwood, reporting for Nightline.
A new scam involving fake work cover licences has been unearthed by the New South Wales Corruption Commission. The inquiry was told 3 employees at the Gosford branch admitted issuing the false documents. Genuine certificates are needed for construction work, including scaffolding, rigging and explosives.
The investigation has to date revealed that in excess of 2,500 certificates are suspected of having been issued improperly. If more than one person...
Up to $400 was paid for each fake licence. It's a well-known saying that a good sleep does you the world of good. But a new report has found that when that doesn't happen, it can be dangerous, unhealthy, and for employers, very expensive.
Every night, hundreds of thousands of Australians suffer sleep problems, insomnia, snoring, sleep apnea, where they briefly stop breathing, and at least 70 other conditions such as restless leg syndrome. And when it becomes chronic sleep deprivation, it's dangerous to themselves and others.
I actually drove through a red light the other day.
The first national report on sleep disorders found the flow-on effect of disturbed brain function leads to a huge injury toll. 9.1% of work-related injuries, 20,000 vehicle accidents annually. Worse still, 15% of occupational drivers, such as cabbies and truckies, suffer sleep apnea.
They're chronically tired and they're spending a lot of time on the road, so of course the risks are compounded.
Lack of sleep also leads to lack of oxygen and health problems. 120,000 with high blood pressure, 80,000 with depression, and $65 million in heart disease, diabetes and stroke. Despite the $10 billion cost, these known cases are estimated to be just 30% of the true number with sleep disorders. And the report's authors recommend more be done in terms of research and treatment.
Results surprised us in terms of their magnitude. Sleep health has a greater burden of disease than well-known conditions like melanoma or HIV/AIDS.
Cheryl Taylor for Nightline.
Ahead on Nightline, Shane Warne's latest cover-up. And nerves of steel from some daredevil flyers. An elderly Victorian man who fought off a violent intruder with his slipper giving him a bloody nose says he's ready to go another round. The 87-year-old scared the offender away despite being hit over the head with an iron bar.
Johnny Osborne retaliated when an abusive intruder broke into his home and attacked him in the lounge room with an iron bar.
He said, I'm going to kill you. Back of that, I don't want to die yet.
His weapon, a slipper.
I took the bloody shoe off and I thumped him. I probably broke his bloody nose and broke his teeth or whatever. So he'd be going to a dentist today.
Mr. Osborne, who has a pacemaker, was struck over the head and his arm badly bruised as he defended himself. The horse trainer, Mount Eliza's 1999 Citizen of the Year, thinks it was a case of mistaken identity.
He's looking for a bloke called Bert that had a front-end loader, and he wanted to know if he buried his sister in the backyard with his front-end loader.
The offender escaped on foot, threatening that he'd be back. Police are appealing to anyone who knows a man fitting his description.
The offender's quite distinctive. He's a male, early 30s. He has a gold tooth.
It's not the first time the 87-year-old has been the victim of an intruder. In 1999, burglars ransacked his home while he slept, leaving with almost $3,000 cash. This time, no one was getting away without a fight.
Well, as he comes back, I'll do him up again, yeah. I'll give him a bit more next time, though.
Jamie will check for Nightline.
Chappelle Corby's fast-talking Jakarta lawyer has officially launched her appeal in Bali. Hotman Paris Hatupaya submitted the 21-page document before visiting Chappelle in prison with her sister Mercedes.
She's good. She's very good, and she even promised that one day we're going to have a very nice dinner once she's free.
Very confident.
The defence team wants the case reopened so a new panel of judges can hear 14 pieces of evidence not presented in the original trial. At least 18 people have been killed and more than 50 wounded in a suicide bombing at a crowded market in the Iraqi oil city of Kirkuk. The bomber walked into an open-air market in the centre of town and detonated his device. Kirkuk is the centre of ethnic tensions over control of the potentially wealthy northern oil fields. Another step towards his trial, Saddam Hussein has appeared before a special tribunal to face questions about an alleged atrocity during his dictatorship. The judge released the pictures without sound. Saddam was much calmer than last year when he tried to bully investigators. The appearance is part of the process of finalising charges against him. A trial date has still not been set. White-knuckle flying in the Netherlands. Pilots racing the clock through an obstacle course in the Rotterdam round of the Flying World Series. One pilot clipped a gate as he went through, but he recovered safely. There were more than just Flying Dutchmen. An American won this event. The competition continues in Austria in a fortnight. Along with bowling, Shane Warne's signature is his ever-changing hairstyle. Now in London, he's revealed there's more of it than there was 3 months ago.
A mystery woman teasing his hair alone in London. Press photographers on his case, but no tech scandal this time. Warne claims his wicket was worn, so for 3 months, he swapped the baggy green for a hair-restoring helmet, laser treatment for thinning locks.
I'm starting to enjoy it, actually. It's better than going bald.
The model agrees.
An experience I've never had before, but I'd like again.
And Warney says his wife likes it too. Thicker hair and a fatter wallet.
Yeah.
Warne joins Greg Matthews and Graham Gooch as a paid spokesman. Personal grooming and vanity aside, Warne hopes being a bit more thick up top makes him a bit more slick out here. If he can weather the taunts of England's fans.
Every Ashes tour we come here, the Barmy Army have some sort of new song. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's some hair song this year, which I think could be quite funny.
A new life in England with his family, a portrait at Lord's, the face of the Ashes for UK TV coverage, new hair, old catchphrase.
At this stage, it's probably just stick with the yeah, and that at the moment. I think it's pretty cool, that.
In London, Michael Usher for Nightline.
Nightline Sports News is up next, including Mark Gasnier given the State of Origin all clear. And England takes the first points in the Ashes tour. To sport, and the Blues have received the boost they were hoping for, with Mark Gasnier past fit for tomorrow night's must-win Origin 2. The centre has overcome his groin injury, but New South Wales is covering all bases, calling Anthony Watmoe into the squad in case of any last-minute injuries.
Some of the players say it's the moment nerves start to kick in. 24 hours out from Origin 2, the Blues have moved house. They're now staying 10 minutes from the ground, where coach Ricky Stewart said his piece today.
Mark Gasnier has been improving every day, and at the end of the session today, you will get a statement.
Straight to the point there, then the blunt end followed.
From my point of view, I'm very bored of the web speculation. I'm very bored with the refereeing. So I'd like to thank you for your attention here today. Cut.
Gasnier in full flight was hidden from the cameras, but he completed the session, and it's lifted everyone around him. The Maroons also trained on the ground, where they're yet to do a victory lap. Michael Hagan says no matter what the Blues believe, he won't be reshuffling his pack. There was also a veiled shot at New South Wales for seeking clarification on the third man rule involving players joining a fight.
I don't think you need to talk to your players about that. I think that's part of what Queensland's about, so you don't need a clarification on the rules for that to happen.
There will be a lot more questions asked about the Queensland forwards tomorrow. Hagan says Brad Thorne's sternum and Chris Flannery's elbow concerns are over. They're up for any test.
They'll be fine, and they've got through the week really well, and we've got no real complaints at our end.
Clinton Fletcher for Nightline.
The state of the playing surface at Melbourne's Telstra Dome is the centre of hot debate. Richmond coach Terry Wallace has fired the opening salvo, blaming the surface for groin injuries suffered by two key players.
Trent Noble and Troy Simmons sustained groin injuries at centre bounces in Sunday's loss to the Kangaroos, and an angry Terry Wallace has laid the blame firmly on the Telstra Dome surface.
At the moment, the middle is awful. This is the worst that we've had it at the moment in the middle of the ground. They just cannot get purchased to be able to run at the footy.
He had this message for stadium boss Ian Collins.
Ian, if you're listening, please replace it.
He won't get his wish, but today ground staff drained some moisture from the centre of the ground, and they're confident this will fix the problem. Wallace expects Simmons and Noble to play against Adelaide, but star forward Matthew Richardson may not, due to a persistent knee injury which requires fluid to be drained weekly.
That's not much fun for anyone, and you know, a lot of footballers have gone through it, but he's just struggling through that period of his time at the moment.
Melbourne skipper David Neitz definitely won't play this weekend. He was sore as he left hospital this morning after having surgery on his broken cheekbone. His team faced West Coast on Saturday and believe they're better placed than ever to cope without their skipper.
I think we've showed on a number of occasions this year when he hasn't played, and particularly some patches last year, that when he's not around, we do function really well as a forward line, and we do lift.
While Neitz will be back within a month, scans today confirm Collingwood's Reece Shaw won't play again this season. This morning, the 23-year-old was resigned to his fate.
I'm hoping for the best, and if it turns out bad, well, then we'll deal from it.
Julian De Stoop, reporting for Nightline.
Australia's Ashes campaign got off to a wobbly start, crashing to an embarrassing defeat in their 2020 game against England. England put on a total of 179, then smashed through the Australian batting, having them all out for 79 inside 15 overs.
Brett Lee might have fired the first warning of the series, but Jones just dusted himself off and blasted straight back.
Have a bit of this.
Lee lucky his head was still intact. Trescothick cracked 41 off 37 balls.
Solid ball.
After having his kit stolen, Clark still couldn't take a trick.
And we'll name him and shame him.
The young sensation Peterson then went on the attack, smashing 34 off just 18 balls, and in the process outlining some awesome power.
Really cleaned it up again.
And while the skipper Vaughan fell for a first ball duck, Collingwood refused to panic. 46 off 26 deliveries, lifting England to a total of 179.
It's big, it's huge, it's 6.
Chasing just under 9 and over, Gilchrist fell for 15 and Hayden followed the very next ball.
It is, Goff is on a hat-trick again.
It never eventuated, but Clark's run of outs continued. Gone first ball as the Aussies collapsed. Losing Simons, Hussey, Ponting and Martin in quick succession. 7 wickets falling in just 8 runs.
You're kidding me. This is unbelievable.
All out for 79, a 100-run humiliation. Not Australia's ideal start to an Ashes tour. Paul Crawley for Nightline.
One of Australia's top pole vaulters is set to continue a family tradition at the Commonwealth Games. But Stephen Hooker is aiming for what his mum and dad missed out on, a gold medal.
When you have parents who have been champion athletes, expectations can be pretty tough.
Dad keeps baiting me that I've never had a top 10 world ranking in a year. So hopefully this year I can do that and put him in his place.
I'm just trying to make sure he keeps his feet on the ground.
But keeping his feet as far off the ground as possible has been Hooker's main goal as he pursues gold next year in Melbourne. And the 22-year-old doesn't have to look far for inspiration. His father, a top middle distance runner, competed in the 1974 Commonwealth Games. His mother, Erica, won the silver medal in the long jump in the 78 Games and is also an Olympian.
Just as a kid growing up, it helps you realise that, you know, just normal people can do extraordinary things.
There's been Olympic gold medalists and stuff like that wandering through the place, so Steve has seen that they're just normal people, 2 arms, 2 legs.
Not surprisingly, Hooker has always been a talented athlete. He trained with the Oakley Chargers and could have been a top footballer.
We can't go to the Olympics playing football, so I think I'm happy with my decision.
Hooker experienced his first Olympics last year but performed well below his best. He started training again on the day he arrived back from Athens and has been focusing on making amends ever since. But as he aims high, his mother has some down-to-earth advice.
Enjoy the experiences that come with it and take it along with you for the rest of your life.
Christina Hearn for Nightline.
Stay with us after the break, our nightly look at finance, tomorrow's weather details, and uncovering history in an Adelaide backyard. Now to finance, and the Reserve Bank has signalled that it intends to keep interest rates on hold. With the details, business reporter Karen Cho.
The good news for homeowners is that interest rates are likely to stay put for a couple of months. The bad news is that any hope of a rate cut this year has been dashed. In one of his rare speeches on the economy, Reserve Bank Governor Ian Macfarlane says inflation is lower than anticipated, with domestic demand falling on the back of a weak housing market and farm production.
We've been waiting and hoping for some slowing in domestic demand for some time. It's now happened. Don't feel upset about it. Feel comfortable that that means that the sustainability and the stability of the economy overall has improved.
The Reserve Bank says the current slowdown should in the end prolong the expansion rather than bring it to an end. The bank predicts that demand will be stimulated in coming months by a jump in commodity prices, which will boost the nation's income. And there's growing momentum from within OPEC for the oil cartel to increase production, even though it's likely to lower crude prices. Representatives from member countries have arrived in Vienna ahead of a meeting. Crude oil has surged in recent days and is trading above $55 a barrel. And elsewhere, shares in the Strathfield Group were suspended today. The electronics retailer has already forecast a loss of up to $4 million this year, and market watchers are tipping it could close several stores. On the markets, the Allards gained 9 points. The Commonwealth Bank rose 1 cent. News Corp jumped 19 on plans to return $3 billion in cash to investors. Resources were also stronger. Elsewhere, the ANZ lost 13 and the NAB 5 cents. Gaming stocks also eased. And that's all on finance.
And now to find out what's in store for the weather, it's good evening to Janie Seal.
Hello there. Well, for our Wednesday, the high-pressure system will take over our wonderful wet weather we have been having. The rain in Queensland will head a little bit further to the northeast and clear. Most of your rain, New South Wales, will ease as well, but the low and the bite will continue generating strong winds and showers right along the south coast. We have a front arriving later in the day for the southwestern corner of Western Australia. Now, the rain should eventually clear on Wednesday for Brisbane. 19 degrees the top in Sydney with light to moderate west norwesterly winds. Sunshine and rain-free for the state of origin. A frosty morning for Canberra and showers arriving later in the day for Melbourne and Hobart. Waking up to some more storms and showers in Adelaide and getting wet over in the west. Perth 18, fine and sunny in Darwin. The temperatures will stay quite low in the south on Thursday with a few showers in Melbourne, Hobart. More storms appearing in the southwest including Perth. And then Friday we'll see a few sprinkles in Hobart and Melbourne, eventually clearing from those of you in Perth.
A mystery has been solved in Adelaide. For decades, authorities in the city's eastern suburbs knew that a crypt from the 1800s existed. But until today, they didn't know where the bodies were buried.
An unprecedented fight for workers on this vacant block on Portrush Road around 7 this morning. Less than a metre below the surface, they struck the roof of this elaborate underground crypt with concrete stairs leading to the coffins.
We were told there were three bodies buried on the site somewhere, and now we've come to a dead stop. We have a valuable piece of land here we can't do nothing with.
Police were called to the St George's site but could do little more than secure and guard the graves until Burnside Council officials and heritage experts arrived. For residents, the discovery ended a mystery.
I'm excited. You know, we've all wondered where it was. Just through living here, you know, we knew there was going to be a development, and we also heard that there'd been bodies buried here.
It's understood one is Edward Drew, who once owned the nearby Highfield estate, which still remains. Beside him lay his sister Sophia and her farm manager husband Joseph Dauncey. All died between 1860 and 1864. The council has known for years that the burial site existed, but extensive searches of the land in the past failed to uncover the crypt.
They now plan to use archaeology students to further scour the land on the possibility there may be a second gravesite. Work on the land has been stopped indefinitely while discussions continue as to what will be done with the corpses.
And I'm sure we can do something about retaining that part of the, and negotiating that with the owner of the site, of retaining this part of the land, because that was the original intention.
Emma Cox for Nightline.
And that is the news of the day. Our next bulletin is National 9 News Early Edition at 6 a.m. Then on the Today Show, the big shake-up in child support payments. I'm Helen Kapelos from Nightline. Thanks for your company. Good night.